Imagine a world where every conversation you had, every message you sent, every piece of data on your phone was an open book to the government. In 1993, the NSA tried to do just that by inserting a tiny computer chip into everyone's phone. They thought their plan was foolproof, except they didn't count on a ragtag group of rebellious crypto-anarchists called the cypherpunks, and one brilliant researcher who found their chip's fatal flaw, turning their surveillance chip into a worthless piece of junk. This is the story of the crypto wars, a monumental moment in history that shaped digital privacy forever. The year is 1993. Bill Clinton had just taken office as the 42nd President of the United States.
Thank you, and God bless you all.
The internet was still in its early days, and dial-up internet was just starting to take off. SMS messaging was still in its infancy, and phone calls were the predominant form of communication. The iconic Nokia 2110 had just released, and mobile phones were becoming more commonplace. A war was raging. It was called the Crypto Wars. On one side was the US government, which for years had restricted the use of strong encryption and banned its export, and on the other side, a radical movement of programmers, hackers, and activists who communicated on an email list. They called themselves the cypherpunks, founded by the brightest minds in privacy, cryptography, and digital rights, like Timothy C. May, John Gilmore, and Eric Hughes. Their goal was simple. They wanted to make unbreakable, secure encryption available to everyone, believing that it would create a more free and open society. Despite all these technological advancements, concerns were rising about the security of communications and how they needed to be protected. Encryption algorithms and chipsets were starting to be developed. This would make conventional wiretapping impossible for the government. Enter the Clipper chip, a chipset developed by the notorious National Security Agency, with the aim of securing and protecting private conversations on mobile phones. Except it had a massive caveat. It allowed law enforcement backdoor access to communications. The Clipper chip was a cryptographic chipset that was designed to be installed on mobile phone mainboards. It would facilitate the use of encryption algorithms on these devices and allow for secure calling between two parties. The chip itself used a cryptographic algorithm called skipjack, which was also developed by the National Security Agency. Information about how it worked and what it did specifically was scarce, because the United States government had classified the algorithm as secret. How exactly did the backdoor work? Is it possible to backdoor maths? The answer is that it's not a backdoor, it's a front door. The cryptographic chipsets that were created in the factory were given a cryptographic key. A copy of that key would also be stored by the manufacturer. These keys would be retained until a government agency requested them. This would allow these government agencies to decrypt all data transmitted by that particular telephone. To the cypherpunks on the mailing lists, there was no debate. The Clipper chip represented a mathematical betrayal. They saw the Clipper chip as directly counter to their vision, an attempt to force everyone to adopt broken encryption. The Clinton administration argued that the backdoor was essential for catching criminals and would only be used when a court issued a warrant. Privacy advocacy organizations such as the EFF argued that handing over keys to the government wouldn't be key escrow, but rather a key surrender. Fortunately, the Clipper chip was heavily criticized and pulled apart by cryptography experts and privacy advocacy organizations. Criticism wasn't enough to foil the government's plan to backdoor everyone's communications. The US government claimed their confidential and secret encryption algorithm, skipjack, was unbreakable and impenetrable. It turns out the NSA didn't count on someone not trying to break the encryption, but instead looking for a loophole to bypass the encryption entirely. Enter Matt Blaze, a cryptography researcher who was at the time at the forefront of encryption and cryptographic operations at AT&T. In 1994, he was able to get his hands on the technical specifications of the Clipper chip itself. And he did what any good researcher does. He tried to find flaws and vulnerabilities in its design. The chip's backdoor relied on a special 128-bit signal called the Law Enforcement Access Field, or LEAF. The LEAF contained a session key which would be sent to the government so they could listen in. The chip was designed to only work if a valid LEAF was transmitted. Blaze discovered something so critical to the Clipper chip's function that it effectively broke its entire purpose. When establishing a secure channel between two telephones, Blaze had discovered that you could simply fill the LEAF with 128 bits of garbage data. The effect? The chip on the receiving end would establish the secure connection, but the key sent to the government would be invalid, meaning that the government wouldn't be able to snoop on that communication. Blaze had bypassed the entire key escrow system, defeating the purpose of the Clipper chip entirely. Blaze published his research in a now legendary paper, Protocol Failure in the Escrowed Encryption Standard. It was a technical smoking gun. His research proved mathematically that the government's supposedly secure and impenetrable backdoor was fundamentally broken. This research effectively destroyed the Clipper chip, and the entire idea of key escrow was relegated to the pages of history. It seems governments still haven't learned their lesson. There's no such thing as secure encryption with a backdoor. As soon as you make a copy of the keys, that's just broken encryption. The core lesson of Matt Blaze and the cypherpunks lives on to this day. Every time a government proposes a new law for technical assistance or lawful access, they are repeating the same fatal mistake that the Clipper chip made. Encryption plays a huge role in protecting everyone every day. Without encryption, we wouldn't have privacy, security, or anonymity. Journalists and whistleblowers wouldn't be able to speak out about injustices. Minorities would be placed at risk, and our interconnected digital society would cease to function. It's important that we stay informed and educated about these issues, so that we are prepared to push back against these breaches of privacy and security. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into encryption backdoor history, please consider subscribing. We wouldn't be able to produce these videos without the support of our members and donators. If you want to support our work, please consider making a donation. See you next time on Privacy Guides.